How old were you when you went on your first date?
18.
18. Where'd you go?
I believe we went to church.
Really?
I think I did.
Who'd you go with?
Sanford, my husband. We went, I think, to Oxford Presbyterian Church.
Okay.
I think that's where it was, our first date. But, you know, at my time, I had trouble going anyway, you know. My dad didn't want me to go with Sanford.
Yeah.
And that was when I was 18 years old.
Now, you mentioned that Grandpa Dawson took you to, when you were 18 on your first date, but how did you meet him and when did you meet him?
Well, his parents were distant relatives of mine. They all was Williamsons. One of them was. Miss Dawson was Williamson. And we had always known them all our lives, but we never did. And we'd visit once in a great while.
Yeah.
But just as a friend. And he went to school down there. That's where, at the same time I did. And I don't know, nothing outstanding, only just knew each other.
Was there anything that drew you to him? Was there anything about him that made you
No,
like
he wasn't what I'd always call a glamorous looking person. I always picked out a low, heavy-set person. But Sanford wasn't my idea of a man. That is, in looks.
Yeah. What now? You mentioned on your first date you all went to church. What did you all do on any of your other dates?
Well, we didn't do no whole lot. Once in a while we would go to a show, or we'd go, you know, a lot of times we just done driving, like drive town and drive back. And for Sanford didn't go to the house, didn't come to my house. And I talked to him when I was 18.
Yeah.
And then Daddy first didn't want me to go. And I finally told Sanford, I said, I ain't gonna live that kind of life. I said, I'm just quitting. I ain't going no more with it. And I never did. If I meet him places, go to a party and meet him or something, I was friendly with him. I was mad at him or nothing, but I just didn't want to go through that life.
Yeah.
Every time I went someplace, fussing because I went.
Yeah.
And so I finally had a cousin. I know we went to her house a lot. One day I told her, I said, the time will come that I'll go with Sanford again. And she said, how do you know he will? I'd always, if I went to a party, I'd get a letter from him right after that. When you won't let me come back, or whenever you going to go with me. And I never even answered him. I said, I'm not going. Even my aunt would say, well, if I was him, I wouldn't pay a bit of attention to you. I said, I'm not mad at him, and I ain't going to do nothing, but I ain't going to build no friendship now. I said, when I'm 21 years old, if he ever says anything to me again, I'll go with him. And I was 21 in December. And that spring, it was up March or April, I think around April. And I was sitting in the window there at our house, and he lived above us. And his uncle had bought a Austin. That's a little bit of car.
Huh.
And he was driving it. And he come down the road, and I was sitting in the window, just sitting down there in the window, and he stopped Austin, and he says, you want to go take a ride? I said, yes, as soon as I get my shoes on. And that was the first time I'd ever went any place with him since I was 18. And we went down and I went up to my cousin's. I said, just go up there a while. We went up there a while. And then he come on and brought me back home. We didn't go no place. It was just in the afternoon, late. But I had trouble every time I went in a place.
Yeah.
Had a fuss. I just wasn't paying attention to him. But after we married, he never did.
Didn't raise
We
fuss.
married in we married in December. And we always went to his house for New Year's.
Yeah.
And always come there to mine his house at New Year's for Christmas dinner. And I was down to my brother's. I didn't go back home that night. I told him I wouldn't be back home. I stayed at my brother's, half brother's. And next day he come in down there. Of course, I was getting pretty close to Christmas. And we was sitting there. He'd speak Sanford and talk and everything, but he just never wanted me to go with him. And so when he got up to leave, he said, well, you all come up home now, New Year's Day. And I had told him, I said, now, I told him when I was going to leave and marry and everything. And I told him, I said, now, I'll be back. But if Sanford ever enters your door, I'll never be a cross word with me. But I guess Daddy and I were a lot alike.
Yeah.
You know, he wanted his way and I wanted mine. And that's one reason why we didn't work well together. But he never did. Him and Sanford worked together in the field and everything.
Huh.
But I never had Sanford in my life to ever throw that up to me. You know, I always thought maybe that would be something in my marriage life that if I didn't go right with, you know, his way, he'd throw that up to me, but I never did have him throw that up to me. That my dad didn't treat him right.
Yeah.
Never did have him dare open his mouth about that. I never did want to go in an airplane. Sanford wanted me to go in an airplane before we was married. We went to our airport one afternoon, and I wanted to go, but I was thinking that he didn't have the money really to spend on it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say I would. But he wanted me to go, and we'd go take a ride in it. But I would have done it at that time, but I just thought, and then after that, when we had the means to do it, I just thought, well, now if something happened, I'd be all my family I'd leave.
Yeah.
And I never did want to ride an airplane.
Huh. So you never did?
Never did ride an airplane.
Huh. Did Grandpa Dawson, did he propose to you, or how did that work?
Well, yeah. He told me he had something he wanted to ask me. That's what the way it come around at it. And we was out, coming in home. And, but he never did. I said, well, what is it? He never did say what it was. And finally I said, well, I ain't gonna get out till you tell me what it is. And that's the way it come up. And then after that, his father died. That was in, I think, in January. And his father died in July. And he said, well, I can't leave my mom right now. And we had done set the date for the next Christmas. And so he said, well, it'll have to be postponed. Then we decided that we would just go on.
Yeah.
We'd just go on and get married, and we'd all live together, which is a bad idea with anybody, but for two families in a house.
Yeah.
But we did live through it.
How did you feel about it? Did it surprise you, or did you kind of feel like it was coming, or?
No, I had thought about it. I had had some thoughts of it. And I wondered if we ever would come to that conclusion. For I had a bad on my side. Daddy not want me to go with him. And I told him all the time, he knew what he come when I was 18 years old. He come over home, we played rook. And then Daddy fussed about me going with him. And I told him, I said, no, I'm not mad at you or nothing, but I'm not living that kind of life of being. And I said, I'm just going to quit going with you. I said, and he was going with somebody up after that, a Hampton girl. He went to Ethel Hampton all them years. That I didn't go with him, but.
So where did you end up getting married at then?
Married at the preacher's house in Oxford, Presbyterian preacher.
Huh, at his house?
Uh-huh.
Really? And when was that exactly?
December the 19th, 1934.
Huh. What memory stands out the most from your wedding day?
Well, there was a boy, boy, he was a man, and his girlfriend was going to go with us. And when the preacher married us, he was the biggest crank it ever was, this boy was, Clell Johnson, and they was our witness at the wedding. And he said, oh, boo-hoo, she used to be my girlfriend, but Sanford Dawson's got her. I never will forget that.
So was it just one of those things where just you four went?
Yeah.
Really?
Uh-huh.
So nobody else went?
No, we didn't have no kind of nothing. Well, Sanford come to the house. I told him that I'd be down towards. No, he said, I've always come to the house and got you. And you ain't gonna do that. I'm coming to the house and get you. And he come to the fence.
Did everybody know you were going? Did everybody know?
Oh yeah, I told them at my wedding that day. Told my daddy that morning. Oh, I told him the week before too. I'd bought me some clothes, wedding clothes, and I told him them was my wedding clothes. He always said I'd be sorry I ever done it, but I never was.
Maybe he was just scared to see you go.
Well, everybody kept telling me he just don't want you to leave.
Yeah.
Well, he might not want me to leave, but I was thinking of my life as well as I was of his.
Yeah.
And he lived 8 years after I married.
Yeah.
But he never would give up for Sanford to come to the house or me to go with him, but I told him I was going. I said, now you just will to...
How would you describe Grandpa Dawson?
Well, he wasn't a hard person to get along with. He just had his way of living. I reckon I never had no trouble. That's the only trouble ever I had with him in my life. Mm-hmm. And he was always do anything for anybody. He was very nice about all of that. He always provided for the family, and he wasn't a hard person to live with. He was very kind.
From your marriage and from everything you've ever seen, what do you think is the key to a successful marriage?
Well, you've got to give and you've got to take. You ain't going all the ways get along. Mm-hmm. But you've got to remember there's another person besides you. And I know I had a friend one time that said that her and her husband never had a crossword in their life. I said, I hate to tell you to your face that you lied, but I don't believe it. I said, I don't think there's anybody that hasn't had some crossword someplace or disagreed with each other. You're going to disagree, but it works over. If you, as I say, you've got to take and you've got to give. But be true to your marriage is one thing I think is, if you're true to your marriage and all, I think there shouldn't be a lot of trouble.